それでは
Allow me to start the Fukushima Nuclear Accident Independent Investigation Commission, the NAIC. I would like to start the 6th Commission meeting. First, about the working group activities, I would like to give you a report about working group number 1. Mr. Mitsuhiko Tanaka, please. Allow me to be seated. Working group number 1. I serve as a co-chair. My name is Tanaka. In the last meeting, the February 27th, the 5th Commission meeting was held. So what has happened since then? Since then, the hearings on TEPCO have been conducted on the continued basis. And during this time, we've also made an on-site tour to Fukushima Daiichi and Daini power plants. The central control room, or main control room, was also observed by us. I had a chance to meet the shift manager, and we conducted hearings on the person. We will continue to do so going forward. About the nuclear technology, earthquake, and tsunami, the experts in these fields, and also NISA, Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency, and JNIS, Japan Nuclear Energy Safety Organizations, on these people and organizations, hearings have been conducted as well. Thank you very much. Working group number 2, Mr. Yokoyama, please. Working group 2 focuses on damages investigation. I serve as a co-chair of the working group. My name is Yokoyama. This working group holds hearings on experts in health and environmental impact by radiation. There are some differences in opinions, double checks, triple checks. What we do, we also analyze data as well. And concerning social damages, the special focus has been made, and hearings is carried out on status of damages with a focus on social damages. And findings from the nuclear accident in Chernobyl are effective materials to reasonably foresee Fukushima in 25 years' time. And we are holding hearings on experts of this accident. On March 19th, in the 7th Commission meeting, we are planning to invite an expert from Ukraine for an open hearing session. That's all from me. Thank you. Working Group 3. Mr. Sakurai, please. Working Group 3 focuses on policy investigation. I serve as a co-chair. My name is Sakurai. Generally speaking, not much difference has been observed since the last meeting. The hearings on TEPCO and others concerned in the accident, including people in the government, have been conducted. And we also investigate issues based on materials. And Japanese and overseas nuclear regulation is also studied in this working group. That's all from me. Thank you. Thank you very much. The Commission is planning to make an overseas study tour from the end of this month to the beginning of April. Mr. Oshima, about this overseas study tour, please. This is really about overseas study tour, and I'm in charge of overseas study tour. My name is Oshima. This will be the first overseas study trip in 2 groups from March 31st to April 10th. We are planning to visit Europe for the study tour. Regarding the purpose, first, in Vienna, Austria, there is IAEA headquarters. We are planning to visit them about the international nuclear regulatory matters. We are planning to conduct some study. And France, this is a typical nuclear country in Europe. We were going to visit this country to do some study. Third, about the damage status from Chernobyl accident, as well as alleviation measures concerning the current status in Ukraine, Belarus, Russia. we're planning to visit these 3 countries to conduct some studies. We'll report the details to you when we come back from the visit. That's all from me. Thank you.
So that is the study plans that we have. It's already 1 year since the great disaster. For the people who have passed away, I'd like to present my most sincere condolence. And also to the victims and survivors, those people in the affected area, I would like to offer my profound sympathy. The pace of reconstruction should go robustly, and I hope that the people will overcome the sorrow. The community was disintegrated and so forth. I hope that they will go back as soon as possible to the normal day-to-day lives. That is the most sincere wish for us. And also, we must bear in mind the thoughts of the victims, and we must do our utmost in promoting what we are supposed to do. As we have announced on our website, at this commission, the pursuit of the fact as well as the actual state of the accident, we are having a cooperation with the municipalities, and we are trying to cover the status involving the victims through questionnaire survey. The result of our investigation will be compiled in a report, which will be issued more or less in June. And the questionnaire survey results will be contained in the report. We will have the question and answer session with our witness today. Today, we have Mr. Sakae Muto, advisor, Tokyo Electric Power Company. At the time of the disaster last year, he was the Executive Vice President and General Manager, Nuclear Power and Plant Siting Division of TEPCO. Mr. Muto, thank you very much for coming to this commission meeting. I hope that you will express your unreserved opinions, and we would like to ask various questions from various aspects. Thank you very much for coming, Mr. Muto, and we will commence our discussion session. Now, as the chair of the commission, I appreciate very much for your appearance, Mr. Muto. At the time of the accident, nuclear accident, Mr. Muto, the chairman and president were not in Tokyo, were not in Fukushima. In that situation, you were the person at the highest responsibility in looking after the accident. Japanese people would like to find out the true facts about the accident. Protecting the organization of TEPCO should not be the sole concern for you. I think you should show your sincerity to the history of all of us. What happened at that time, why it happened at that time. Would you be prepared to speak from those standpoints? Chairman and president were away from Tokyo, away from Fukushima, as the top person of the nuclear-related matters. I'm sure your work must have been very hard. Mr. Muto, from the line of your business at the actual power plant site, how much experience do you have in relation to nuclear power plant? Thank you. I am Muto of TEPCO. First of all, on March 11 last year at our Fukushima plant, we emitted a great amount of radiation. That was an accident. Irreparable damage was made. And because of this accident, the local people in Fukushima, as well as broadly the Japanese people in the society, we have caused a lot of trouble and inconveniences, hardships, and unspeakable worries we gave to all the people. And the concern still continues even today. As the person actually party to this accident, we are very sorry, and I'd like to present my profound apology to what happened. I am very sorry. Now, Dr. Kurokawa, the chair, has expressed a point. We experienced a very large accident. As a person, directly related with the accident, certainly we have a lot of soul-searching points, a lot of things that we have to reflect upon. But as I look back, what was it? How was it? At that time, I was the person in responsible position. So in my own way, to the extent to my ability, I would like to speak and respond to your questions. And I'd like to seek your kind understanding regarding my general position. Now, let me respond to your question. I'm very sorry, but please allow me to speak while I'm seated. Regarding my business background, that was the first question by the chair. I joined TEPCO, and the first posting for me was in Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, which presented the accident. And since then, within the organization of TEPCO, I've been associated with the nuclear reactors. I have come around, I have experienced many different works. Regarding the power plant work, I worked in Fukushima Daiichi plant 3 times altogether. And also in Niigata, we have Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant. I was posted there. So altogether, 4 times I was working in a nuclear power plant and executing my work. Thank you.
So in your own career, I'm sure there are division of the labor. In terms of safety for the nuclear power plants, were you ever posted in such a division or section? Nuclear technology, first and foremost, should start from safety. So I don't think there is any section that has nothing to do with the safety on the nuclear technology. That has always been the tenet for myself. But as a chairperson has asked me, when you speak of safety, there are all sorts of different types of the safety. For our day-to-day work, of course, the safety is very relevant. And whenever we are to first construct the nuclear power plant, we try to anticipate both things that could happen and that could not probably happen. Everything will be considered in trying to design the plant. And there is a department for this purpose. So if I may take the narrower definition of the safety, if I may say so, I myself, when I was working at the Tokyo office for the Kashiwazaki Kariwa nuclear power plant, for units 3 and 4, as well as units 6 and 7, for the construction of these reactors, design for safety, as well as design for the nuclear reactor. Yes, I have experienced being involved with those tasks. And when I was at the Tokyo office, now what I have just mentioned is the designing for the construction of the nuclear power plants. After the plant has been constructed, we need to continue incessantly to improve on the safety with the progress in technology. And as the experience has accumulated, we would constantly try to make revisions in order to improve the level of safety. And I myself have also been involved in such a job as well. Thank you.
From the members of the Commission, there will be questions there. I hope that you will understand and cooperate with us. About the response to the accident, first, Mr. Sakurai. I'm Sakurai, I'm one of the members of the Commission. In our understanding, Mr. Muto, at the time, you were actually the head of the nuclear division. That's my understanding. Now, you talked to us about the normal times, but at the time of the nuclear disaster, regarding the top of the nuclear division, what are the roles and the responsibilities? In the times of nuclear accidents regarding our system, there's a special measures concerning nuclear damages. There is an act or law, and it doesn't just concern electric operators, but the various related to the organizations must make a plan in advance. And based on the law or act, the disaster prevention, the operation plan must be devised. There, at the nuclear power plant, the headquarters in response to the disaster must be established, and also at our headquarters it must be established. At the nuclear power plant, the power plant, the leader is the manager. On the main office, then the president of TEPCO serves as the leader. And my position is to assist the president of the company. In this case, the president was absent. In that case, the amount from the vice presidents, the head of the headquarters is chosen. And there, when the president comes back, my position was to assist the president.
At the time of accident, President was absent, and you were occupying a responsible position, and you were issuing. Who was the actual person at the command and instruction post? I think I have to explain to you the general background. In the beginning, last year on March 11th, there was a very big earthquake which hit the place, 246 magnitude, 4.6 earthquake hit the area. And at the head office, the emergency-related people were gathered. When such a huge earthquake hits, there is one thing that we learned from our past experiences. We experienced a Chuetsu earthquake in Niigata Prefecture some years ago. At that time, it was again a very huge earthquake which hit Niigata area. On the power plant side, the plant operation must be under control, and it requires a lot of works. And at that time, within the plant itself, the transformer caused the fire. We are sorry about that. The fire was caused. From the safety standard, the safety importance is not so high. However, it was a fire, nevertheless, of a nuclear power plant, and it was communicated to the whole world, especially the image of fire was communicated to the rest of the world. And therefore, the significance of that fire should have been explained. That is the lesson that we learned from this fire case in Niigata. So we knew that the major earthquake was happening in March. So from the head office, the management people would go to the local area, and then the director of the power plant will be occupied with the operation of the plant. And regarding the communication to the local people, the management from the Tokyo head office would do that. So that was the thinking which went into the formulation of manual. This time around, the earthquake was very huge. So following the lessons we learned from Niigata Prefecture, in times of the drill and exercise, we were doing the same thing. So head of the headquarters will go to the actual power plant. So on the 11th of March, like 3 o'clock or 3:30, I left Tokyo and I went to power plant in Fukushima. So regarding the command post at the Tokyo head office, the managing director, Komori, who was working with me, was the person at the responsibility position in issuing a command at the Tokyo head office.
Next, at the time of the accident on March 11th, first of all, on site, on the ground of the accident. In other words, with Director Yoshida, as well, and between Mr. Yoshida and the head office, what kind of communication was being done? what were the communication actually being undertaken and the communication that was supposed to be done but not done, if you could comment on both. So the communication between the power plant and the head office, I believe that is the gist of your question. The magnitude of the earthquake was so huge. And in the power plants, and there were the three the units from 1 to 3 on Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, and we have seen the video screen, and we have seen that the nuclear reactor has been stopped. Then there was a huge tsunami that hit the power plant, and the power supply, the emergency power supply, the diesel power supply, that was still continued. And what we have anticipated at the time of design, the operation at the plant, it was exactly going as we have anticipated. But I believe the crux of your question is, as the accident has progressed, what happened then? After the tsunami has hit the plant, the situation have turned to be very difficult. Because all the AC, this power supply, the external power supply have been cut off. And there are emergency diesel motors, 13 units. All of them they were down. They were not able to be used. And also the DC, the battery, the power supply for emergent purpose that was there, but we were not even able to use that power line either. And inside the power plant, the central control room and the communication with the power plant, the emergency, the team, there were no equipments or the channels to be used for communication. And the emergency headquarters at the plant have tried to collect the relevant information as much as possible to be conveyed to the head office. But the emergency headquarters in the plant and the headquarters at the head office, we had a dedicated the line, the video conferencing the line that was being operated. So at the emergency, the headquarters at the plant, the communication transmission that have being done, and the video image was also being able to be seen. But in trying to collect the information, the biggest constraint was the communication between the site and the emergency headquarters, because there was no tools or equipments to be used for the communication purpose. And because of the gigantic tsunami, there were debris piling up, blocking all the possible pathways. And during the night, because there is no power supply, there are no lights. So people were not able to have a good understanding as to what was actually happening on the site, on the ground.
March 11, when the earthquake hit, you were at the head office, Mr. Komori. Yeah, Mr. Shimizu was not there. So when did you leave and when did you arrive in Fukushima? Leaving head office, that was about 3:30 p.m., as I recall. But from the exercises or the drills, when we conducted those things, the head of the nuclear division should take the helicopter. So the arrangement of a helicopter was conducted, and this time that helicopter was arranged for me. The heliport is in a place called Shinkiba. To Shinkiba, I used my car, but there was so much traffic at the time. Liquefaction was pretty severe in certain areas, so I couldn't really get to heliport by car. I had to walk, and also I had to hitch a car and somehow managed to reach the heliport. When I arrived at the nuclear power plant, it was a little dark outside, so I believe it was around 6 o'clock. So when you arrived in Fukushima nuclear power plant, what time was it? Around 7? At 6 o'clock in the Daini, the ground of Fukushima, I first landed there, and then first visited the emergency headquarters in the Daini Fukushima power plant.
Nomura is my name, commission member. Continuing on, I'd like to talk about what happened at the time of accident. As you explained, in this accident, the all AC power supply was lost. And that was a major event. That was your explanation. At that time, Mr. Muto, Executive Vice President Muto, at that time, were you aware of the fact that when did you come to know about the loss of power? I don't remember exactly the exact time, but I left the head office, and before I arrived at Fukushima, somewhere in between, I received a mobile phone communication, and I was told about the total power supply loss. I think I received the report. Well, at that time, off-site center, well, as I hindsight, it was located in an inappropriate place in terms of distance and so forth. It was created rather close to the nuclear power plant itself. So in a situation like this, off-site center itself was placed in a very difficult situation because of the radiation. Were you not able to assume that beforehand when you got that information firsthand? Did you think of that? Inappropriate siting of the off-site center. The power supply loss was told to me. So without the external power supply, the nuclear reactor safety can be ensured for a certain amount of time. That is the original design concept. With the DC direct current, the cooling system can be operated, and even with the loss of external power supply, it does not directly lead to the damage of the reactor core. So at that time, the off-site center is not functioning. That was not what I anticipated with the contamination with the radiation. At that time, I was not thinking of that. But the station blackout, when I heard about the external power loss, first I was going to Fukushima for communicating with the local people. That was the mandate I was given, I thought. So off-site, I had to go to off-site center. That was something that I thought about it in between.
So just as you have said, initially, the reason why you have gone to Fukushima was to provide explanation to the local residents, but in actuality, you did not give that much of explanation to the local residents, right? Now, in our the predetermined procedures, we were supposed to go into the off-site center. And I believe at the time I wanted to go to the off-time center. But after I have arrived in Fukushima, I have been told that off-site center had lost the power supply. So it was not functional at all. That was a report I received when I arrived at Fukushima. So then, rather than going to the off-site center, I thought that perhaps I should try to provide the explanation to the local, the residents. The original reason for my visit to Fukushima originally when I have departed Tokyo. So as I was continuously checking whether the power supply have been recovered or not, and in the evening I went to Okawara, the town, and I have met with the mayor. Okuma town, and then I went to Futaba, the town. It was past the midnight, and I have met with the mayor, and I have explained what was happening.
About those two towns that have the nuclear power units, you mentioned those two names. there are those people who live in the close vicinity who had to evacuate from there, and we have been conducting hearing on them as they live in shelter. And people from Namie town, regarding the explanation from the TEPCO, they seem to be quite unsatisfied because they couldn't get the explanation from TEPCO. That's how I understand this issue. Regarding communication to Namie town, it wasn't done sufficiently, am I correct? Based on the Act on Special Measures concerning a nuclear emergency preparedness, this is the communication notification that there has been a major incident or accident. If it happens, there is a kind of paper that has to be submitted. It's predetermined regarding the substance of the report, including facts. The report or the notification was made. I believe that this has been done. However, the telephone lines were so not really functioning because of various reasons. Perhaps the communication was inadequate. Regarding this notification, the communication, I believe that we did our best, but those voices you have just shared with us, we have been hearing those voices from various places. So regarding the communication and the notification in times of emergency, there is still a lot of room for improvement, as I understand. And we caused so much trouble. And I used to live in Fukushima with my family, and I feel very, very sorry about this.
Now, talking about Namie town, you said that communication was difficult to achieve, but it is on walking distance. So in the first stage, where to evacuate, you could have easily imagined that people would have difficulty in finding where to evacuate. So appropriate information should have been communicated to the people. I think it can be easily imagined. On our side, what is the status of a nuclear reactor? That is something which we have to look into by statute. Article 10 and Article 15 are the relevant provisions. Special Measures Law on Nuclear Disaster, Article 10 and Article 15, we acted accordingly. But was it communicated in an appropriate way to the residents? So there are certain purposes of my going to Fukushima, but at that time, from Daini to Daiichi, actually I transferred by car. The distance is about 10 kilometers. Usually by car, it takes no time. But the roads were damaged and destroyed. Therefore, from Daini to Daiichi, the traffic was very bad. It was very difficult of going. So the communication at the time of emergency, there are so many things which should have been devised as a hindsight. Just a point of confirmation. Outside the site, information was under your responsibility, TEPCO's responsibility. To the surrounding towns and communities, we contacted and we informed accordingly. But regarding evacuation, that is off-site center or the national government, including the local municipal government. It is of the nature of consultation involving those entities.
Now, let me touch upon another point. The other day, what was thought to be not existing, the minutes of the meetings that were being transcribed from the different notes. And at the 1903 of the March 11th, the very initial meeting, the possibility of meltdown has already been pointed out. That is known from the notes. And the Prime Minister's office already knew of that, meaning that the assumption is that TEPCO already knew of that. So when was TEPCO to come to know the possibility of the meltdown of the core? For the nuclear reactor, the cooling of the nuclear reactors, in view of that, the accident could have been stopped, but the cooling did not go on that well. And the cooling to be disrupted means an emergency. Immediately after the nuclear plant has been hit by the earthquake and tsunami, when the water supply will be stopped, that the damages would be seen to the reactors. Everyone had that kind of possibility in mind in trying to cope with the situation. I do not precisely remember the exact time. I don't think I have the record myself, but I believe it was on the 11th evening that the fuel rod may be exposed. The possibility of that has been reported. Yes, I do recall that. When you say it was reported, that you have reported to the Prime Minister's office through the nuclear power plant, and from the power plant, the information has been conveyed to the relevant parties, including the head office, as well as the relevant ministries, including Prime Minister's office.
Mr. Muto, the possibility of meltdown from the power plant itself. When did you get that report from the nuclear power plant yourself? The possibility of the meltdown itself, I don't recall that I received that kind of a report with that wording. So conversely, from TEPCO to the Prime Minister's official residence, or to NISA, when the report was made, who actually received that piece of information? Do you know that? I don't have records with me, so I don't know. Having said that, regarding the situation concerning the Fukushima nuclear power plant, as I said before, at the central control room, the information that could be garnered at the control room was limited. At the time, there was the loss of AC and loss of DC current means that no instrumentation would work. The water level of the nuclear reactor, or the pressure, regarding those things, in order to see them, for instance, the carrying the batteries and with the temporary power supply, one has to read what the meters say. The fact that we were in a very difficult situation was shared, but as you have said, whether the reactor had seen some melting or not melting, that sort of judgment at the time was very difficult, I believe. And the melting of the nuclear reactor, people use the expression, but the reactor is pretty big. First, the central part of the fuel starts melting, but the peripheral part is not melting. So in a severe occasion, the entire reactor would melt. But with very limited amount of data, with a very limited amount of time, it's extremely difficult to make that kind of a decision.
One more point, I would like to ask a question. In the views of the Japanese people at large, there is a sense of distrust on TEPCO's behavior. TEPCO, immediately after the accident, there was a managerial judgment of withdrawing everybody from the actual site. It was reported in the media, or it was mentioned. So as the part of the management, was there such a managerial decision? Was there such a decision existing within the management of TEPCO? Absolutely not. By no means there was such a judgment. In the media, TEPCO reportedly said that all people must withdraw from Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant. I think it was reported in the media. I am told about such media report. But including myself, we have never, ever engaged in such a discussion. On the 15th of March, early morning, I think what you're talking about refers to the early morning of March the 15th. But even before that, Unit 2 situation became very difficult. On the 14th of March, from the night of 14th, since that time until the 14th of March, I was at the offsite center. And there, offsite situation was something that I considered. And bearing that in mind, I thought that I should go back to Tokyo. So I consulted with Mr. Shimizu, the president. So in the afternoon of the 14th, I left Fukushima and I arrived at Tokyo at night. And I changed with Komori, Mr. Komori. So from the night of the 14th until the morning of the 15th, Unit 2 was in a very dire situation. So in that context, at that time, Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power line at the main building, there were 700 workers, employees, and people from the suppliers and the affiliated companies. This was the only building available for a safe building to house people, so 700 people. But unit number 2 was something that we had to put under control. So all kinds of operations were tried. So we had to do something about it, unit 2. That occupied my mind. But 750 people, is there a reason of having 750 people all located in one building? No, there is no such reason. So from the actual local site in Fukushima, there were some opinions to that effect. So in that situation, except some people, the remaining people can be transferred to Fukushima City or some other place. We were studying that possibility. But everybody is going to evacuate from the power plant? No, it is inconceivable. It was inconceivable to think about it. We had to put Unit 2 under control. That was a big point. So at the main building, at the Fukushima Daiichi and including Tokyo head office, everybody evacuation from the plant. No, that kind of decision never took place, either in Fukushima or at Tokyo head office.
Now, according to what you have just stated, your judgment was tried to reduce to a more rational number. So how many were you thinking, actually? At the time, within the emergency headquarters in the main office, what would be the procedures to be gone by? I have instructed my people to consider on this. But how many should remain? Who should remain? The main office will not be able to decide. So we had to ask the team at the power plant to decide on who should remain. And actually, the director of the power plant, with that intent, have chosen the people to remain. Now, for those people who were not chosen, the word to be moved to Fukushima Daiichi power plant, was it because of the danger, or was it because if there were too many people, then you would not be able to move in a flexible manner? Which was the reason? At the time, the Unit 2 was in a very urgent situation. So there could be certain danger, and we should not have the people who are not really absolutely necessary there to remain. It was not reasonable. So for this decision, the Prime Minister at the time has been said that the President Shimizu have asked for evacuating TEPCO's people, but the Prime Minister said no. Was there any consultation with the Prime Minister on this? Did Mr. Shimizu consulted with the Prime Minister on this question? Now, what Mr. Shimizu have explained to the Prime Minister's office is, as I have just explained to you, for some of our employees to be moved to the rear. That was the intent of what Mr. Shimizu have explained. And Mr. Shimizu, at the very early hour in the morning, was asked by the Prime Minister to come. And the Prime Minister has asked the question, and As I understood it, Mr. Shimizu have explained that that was not the reason, that the reason was, as I have just explained earlier. And in the Parliament, I do understand that the answer was already given to the same question. And I believe Mr. Shimizu has already stated his intent, as I have just indicated. Okay, thank you.
Regarding that, perhaps there was not good communication about Prime Minister's office and so on. A lot of the documents are available. So Mr. Shimizu went to Prime Minister's office and spoke with the Prime Minister Khan. So at the time, perhaps that's how it was understood or how it was perceived. It would be difficult for you to talk about this because you were not there. But any comment? Would you like to make any comment on that? It was a very urgent situation, and through video conferencing regarding what the nuclear power plant said, it was shared what the situation was at the nuclear power plant, what they wanted to do. There are those words, and there were unexpressed things at the same time. And we believe that there was a system that we were able to sort of feel those things. Having said that, when there is such a distance from there, the dire situation of that, the actual place, their intent or what we are thinking, I'm just speaking in general, but communicating those things can be difficult. I think it's true, generally speaking. So at the time, regarding communication with Prime Minister's office, that there wasn't a very good communication. Was that what you felt when you went back to the head office? This is really the report from the President, Mr. Shimizu, so it can be very difficult for you to say. Prime Minister Khan came at very early morning, and in the full evacuation, all the evacuating and all the people would be simply unthinkable. That's what was expressed, but we were not thinking about that. So it was. I felt very uncomfortable about that.
May I present a question? It's a many-parted question. My name is Tanaka. I'm a commission member. So, continuing on with the discussion, with the Tokyo head office and the 2 sites and off-site center, 4 places, a video conference system connecting 4 places. And I looked at that. And regarding what we discussed just now, I have closely looked into what actually happened. 5:30 in the morning of the 15th. According to the videotape, the time is recorded, so it may not be accurate. But about 5:30 in the morning, the Prime Minister Khan expressed in a very fierce words. It so happens that the videotape of that particular segment does not have any sound, but he looks very fierce. Prime Minister Khan is speaking to the main members of the management of TEPCO, and he was speaking very fiercely for about 10 minutes. And according to this videotape, so there were 5 screens, remote sites. Kashiwazaki included, Kashiwazaki Daiichi and Fukushima Daiichi Daini Offsite Center and Tokyo head office. So it was 5-screened video conference. So I was looking at that. Then Prime Minister Khan, Minister Kaiyeda of METI, and if I remember correctly, Mr. Madarame, the chairman of Nuclear Safety Commission of Japan, from the rear view, I sensed it was Mr. Madarame. As was mentioned just now, Prime Minister Khan, did he speak at that meeting, early morning meeting? What did he say? he used very harsh words, and all evacuation from a TEPCO site not possible. That's what he said. And he was chiding us, he was scolding us very fiercely and severely. For as long as 10 minutes, he was speaking, and all screens froze in a way. Fukushima Daiichi people, you said Fukushima, the unit number 2 was in a very unstable condition, and you had to take care of unit 2. So the main building of Fukushima Daiichi, including Director Yoshida, a lot of people were packed in a room, and they are listening to Prime Minister Kan's remarks. So after that, 10-minute speech was over by Prime Minister Kan, and then people moved to a different room, a smaller room. And again, Prime Minister Kan, or across the table, there was Mr. Muto. You were there, and President Shimizu was there. And they were talking about something. That was the image that is recorded. Then, so if you follow the sequence of events chronologically, this discussion continues until 6:20 or so. And in between, there was some change, some difference, something anomalous occurring, like 6:23 or something. Director Yoshida looks back suddenly. And that was the time of the hydrogen explosion of Unit 4. At that time, Unit 2, Unit 4 exploded, and the decompression occurred, and then there was a big commotion happening. Am I right about the chronological sequence of events? Well, regarding the accurate time, well, I just said the timing from the video record, so my timing is not accurate as well. But it was only a 1 or 2 minute difference. Prime Minister Kan came, and then there was a huge room of the emergency response headquarters room. And as you explained, he gave a speech. We were not thinking, but he said that the all TEPCO people evacuation not possible. We didn't think about that. Anyway, he said that. Then he said that discussion is not meaningful in such a big room, he said. So the management people of TEPCO offered that there is an adjacent smaller room. So we all went to the smaller room, and then we continued discussing for some time. I think that was what happened. And during that time, during that discussion, Unit 4 explosion happened. I think that is the sequence of events, as I recall.
Which means, at the time, from 6 o'clock to 6:10, Unit 2, some unusual sound occurred, and depressurizing occurred. And Unit 4, there was a fire on that, so that was the information conveyed to the general public. Now, but rather than explosion of Unit 4, the Unit 2 was thought to be more worrisome. So for Unit 2, the communication between the main office and the power plant the team must have been very critical and crucial. But looking at the video, the 5 television screens show Prime Minister Kan and Mr. Muto, Mr. Shimizu. When you're watching the screen, when you look back, suddenly look back. So, which means something happened, something unusual happened. And then Mr. Yoshida, they have taken up the helmet and have worn the helmet. And then Prime Minister Kan, there was shaking his hand, as if it seemed that you need to go away, and it seems that all of you were rushing, so to speak. So Unit 4, so looked from now. At the time, Unit 2 was thought to be in a very dangerous situation. Units 1 and 3, it was as they were, and in the period of 50 minutes or so, there have been no care been undertaken for Unit 4 at all. So what was your understanding at the time? For the power plant, what was happening on the site? Actually, it was the emergency at headquarters on the plant, or the people at the central control room. They were watching the screens and the gauges and instruments, and whatever happened, they would have to take action. But when we went into the smaller room, and the video conferencing unit was also installed in the small room, so we have had the system connected. So we were watching the screen and looking at what was actually happening. And for the big room of the nuclear emergency response at headquarters, there were some executives remaining. So I'm sure as to what was happening at the power plant had been understood, fully understood by those people. But we were discussing with the Prime Minister, and that is true. So as I watch the video, the record, including Mr. Muto, you yourself, the offsite center, and the communication with the central control unit, it seems that communication has been done frequently. What is the water level and so forth, SRV, to do the chattering or not, to open the vent or not, and all those things. So, Mr. Muto, you yourself have been making the different comments. So, something very urgent is actually being seen from the screen. But you thought that nothing urgent was happening, including myself. What was the role played by the team in Tokyo, the main office? That, I think, has a relevance. Basically speaking, it is true for our day-to-day activities, as well as, to a certain extent, at the time of disaster, emergency as well. The people the closest to the site has the best knowledge. And for those people, for instance, the emergency headquarters or the main office people who are at the distance, what the people there should do, what we need to do is to provide the necessary support so that the team on the ground will be able to take the necessary actions. And if there is anything we have come to know, we will, of course, convey the information immediately and try to support the team on the ground. That, I believe, will be the role to be played by us. So the operation on site, I don't think the Tokyo office should instruct in detail. That, I don't think, should not be the role for myself or for the others at the main office in Tokyo. And if there is any problem, of course, we have the video conference system. So through the system, we will be able to communicate fully. That was the situation at the time, I believe.
So this is what I'm trying to say. You say the site. This is not just the main control room, but led by Director Yoshida. I think you are referring to the people in the main building. Now, am I right? I think it depends on the substance. For instance, cooling the nuclear reactor, the very basic operation, such as cooling the reactor. The persons who are actually doing the operation, they should make that judgment. But in this case, for instance, the venting the containment vessel, then it could have an influence in the peripheral surrounding area as well. So when it comes to that, emergency headquarters, led by the director. They have to be consulted, and then the venting must be conducted. Well, I understood. I might be a bit too nagging, but as I looked at the videos, the Mr. Yoshida, director, and many people are gathering in one place for dozens of minutes. I got an impression that it was not really functioning well, and then I wanted to ask your understanding or your comments on this. Any comments? At the risk of repeating myself. Evacuating all the top TEPCO employees was not something that we were thinking at the time. And there was quite a fierce discussion on that. Well, and then you were talking about vent. Now I would like to ask you some questions about venting the vents of the containment vessel. There has been so much the report on this. So many people are familiar with the terminology, the venting. But containment vessel, the vent or venting, I'd like to ask you about the significance or the meaning of these words. At Offsite Center, as I've been listening to you, whether to do the venting or not to do the venting of the containment vessel, statements have been made about venting. Mr. Muto, for what purpose vent is necessary? How did you understand it? What?
Are you talking about Unit 1? Well, basically, what is meant by venting? The pressurized the vessel is covered by a containment vessel. So with respect to this containment, inner pressure goes up, and when it happens that the containment vessel may collapse, may be breached. So deliberately, at a time like that, deliberately you have to release the pressure inside the containment vessel. So in a very tough situation like this, we must watch the pressure within the containment vessel, and we must act accordingly. But the containment vessel has a function of containing radiation. So even temporarily, that is going to be bypassed through the venting. Then the timing is very important. For example, the local people must complete evacuation and so forth. What is the wind direction? These are the factors which have to be taken into consideration. So there has to be a comprehensive judgment to the extent possible. Therefore, this operation, the venting operation itself, can be handled by the operator, but the director of the nuclear power plant is the head of the emergency response headquarters. So we have to listen to his opinion as well. At this commission, two commission meetings ago, Mr. Madarame, chairman of Nuclear Safety Commission, came and we asked a similar question. At that time, Mr. Madarame said, to the effect that he's talking about unit number 1, when he went there by helicopter together with Prime Minister Kan, he said that before that, venting was necessary, he said, because the nuclear reactor pressure has to be decompressed. Otherwise, water injection is not possible. So SRV has to be operated so that decompression takes place. In order to do that, containment vessel pressure would go up. So with SRV, so he was very concerned about that. So he was talking about the possibility of venting. So that's one aspect, I guess. Actually, watching over the videotape of the video conference, SRV operation chattering, is there chattering or not? Talking about unit number 3, TEPCO people, SRV operation. So they want to do the water injection into the reactor. That was the main point. It was a matter of balance. In the conference, it was discussed. It's a matter of balance. By opening up the SRV, safety relief valve, the pressure of the nuclear reactor may come down, and then from outside cooling would be provided. So you want to cool the reactor, but with the cooling, containment vessel would experience the pressure rise. So venting is one option, as expressed in the discussion, rather than the destruction of the vessel. The SRV operation is for decompression purpose, and that was the venting purpose. So am I right? As you say, there is steam coming from nuclear reactor, and there is SRV, safety release valve. If you open that valve, the nuclear reactor's pressure will go down, but the steam will be contained in the pool within the containment vessel. So if you keep that situation for a long time, the volume of steam within the containment vessel increases, thereby increasing the pressure inside the containment. But basically, water injection and venting of operations are completely different animals. What do I mean by that? Within the nuclear reactor, you inject water. If there is a means available, for example, even the pressure high within the reactor, if there is a pump which enables the water injection, then of course that can be used to do the water injection. In that case, irrespective of the pressure of containment vessel, water injection is possible. On the other hand, containment vessel pressure can rise due to other reasons. Because there are other reasons outside the opening of SRV. Then, irrespective of water injection, the containment vessel has to be protected in order to and then you have to decompress. So in that case, you do the deliberate venting.
I do agree with you. So let me try to go more into a technical detail. In the normal operation, the containment vessels, the pressure being about it's a little bit lower than the one atmospheric pressure. On the other hand, there is a designed pressure for the containment with an absolute pressure or the gauge the pressure. But if we take the gauge the pressure as a unit, 4.37, I believe, 1 kilo or a little bit less than that. So that would be the 5 if you add the 1 atmospheric the pressure to that. So in this specification document, it is written as such. So I'd have to trust that. But when you say design pressure, what does it mean? What the numbers you have just mentioned, I don't have the document with me, so I cannot give you the precise numbers. But when the nuclear reactor is to be built, for the equipment necessary to be installed for the purpose of safety, the strength matters at the time of the accident. So the strength should not be undermined with the accident. We need to ascertain and verify that. And when we speak of accident, there are all sorts of different types of accident. If we are to operate nuclear power plant, there could be possible accidents which may have a high likelihood or very low likelihood, or the probability may be very low, but it could happen. There are all sorts of different levels and the different types of accident. And when you say the design pressure, and looking from the term design, so the normal times, when we design the reactors, we would try to assume what could happen, even though the probability may be low. So in the case of the containment vessel, we would have to verify whether the strength will be able to withstand those risks. So that, I believe, would be the design, the pressure. So for units 1 and 3, the recycling the heater pipes, the diameter that was the largest, and when so-called the guillotine destruction happens, and when the pressure about 3 atmospheric the pressures or so forth, and you have to have some latitude, some room of safety on top of that, and that should be the design, the levels, the specification. So at the time of design, you have designed so that it would not go up to the 4 or more. So that would be the indicator, right? Was that the indicator at the time of design?
Rather than hypothetical incidents, at the time of designing the reactor, it's kind of the assumed incidents, and then there are certain numbers that you check against. So in terms of designing, this would be the maximum pressure. Is that generally speaking, the design pressure? Is my interpretation right? At the time of design, concerning the safety of the reactor, to ascertain the safety of the reactor, we thought about possible incidents, and certain pressure might be there, and then we used those numbers. So that shouldn't be exceeded so easily. So regarding the design pressure, that should normally be the sort of maximum pressure that cannot be easily surpassed. Am I correct? I have a difficulty understanding what you're saying. That design pressure shouldn't be surpassed so easily. So that should be the maximum the possible pressure for the incidents. So generally speaking, it shouldn't be too easily reached, the maximum pressure. Am I correct? At the time of design, the certain scope was considered, but in the accident, it surpassed. I'm sorry about this, but this was not really considered. Which means that concerning Unit 1, about 2:30 a.m., the absolute pressure, about 5, that's the design pressure, but it actually went up to 8.4 in the absolute atmospheric pressure. So that happened. And when that was witnessed, what do you think? What did you think that was happening?
Many things are possible. Nuclear reactor is damaged, or there was a likelihood leading up to the damage of a nuclear reactor. Well, Mr. Nomura momentarily alluded to the possibility of meltdown. The definition of meltdown is very onerous, but probably the damage to the core. So was that the recognition that you had, that the core was being damaged? Within the limited number of parameters we had to think. So the extent of damage, what was the actual situation of the damage, it was very difficult for us to say anything explicitly. And even today, it's very difficult. But the containment pressure went very high, as you pointed out. Design pressure was exceeded. Some kind of anomaly must have been happening. That's what I thought at that time, I'm sure. Now, you talked about design pressure. There is a multitude of standards with which you design certain things. You use such values. Is the object going to be destroyed? No, the total rupture value is different from design pressure. In a severe accident like this time, what is the ability to withstand? What is the extent or point of time of rupturing the containment? I think that kind of thinking was necessary. Well, listening to the discussion, it's very technical. According to Mr. Muto, Prime Minister's office, this time, Prime Minister went to TEPCO head office. In a small room, you had the discussion. At that time, Mr. Muto, do you think that the Prime Minister's office was involved? But do you think that the local matters should be the responsibility of the operator, TEPCO? Was that your feeling? Normally, the primary responsibility of nuclear power plant rests in the hands of operators. We always felt that it is our primary responsibility. However, the accident was very severe indeed, and we alone will not be able to handle many things. So regarding those things beyond our control, like a fire department, a self-defense force, a police force, and all other entities' powers we counted on. So regarding these aspects, we needed anybody's help. So government agencies had to collaborate with us. I think the liaison and communication very important. Did you say that opinion to Prime Minister Kan?
No, not at the time. Not at the time. Yes, please. Sorry. And sorry, Heather, for pressing again on that point. Looking at the video taken from the video conferencing system, what we think strange is there was no sound, only the image remains. The video for 1.5 days, for the initial 1.5 days, are missing. But for Fukushima, there are the tapes just for images without the sound. Still a little bit remain, but there is no video image remaining for the very first part. But then the sounds do remain. But the scene that we are taking up right now, no sound is available. So what I have checked is, it is the usual the DVD system. It is just like the usual DVD system for home use. So if you just touch the button, it could be recorded. Why did it happen that the sound is missing for this part? I myself do not know of what happened at all. I'm sorry for, once again, insisting on the details. When it goes beyond the design pressure, once it is breached, that everything would be destroyed. I don't think that would be the case. I do not subscribe to that view. But as anomaly was happening, and everybody recognized that, in the early morning, that for Unit 1, the preparation was made for the venting. But then the fuel damage may have happened. Did you think that there was a high likelihood of that? But still, deciding on the venting means that to the atmosphere, the radioactive substances may be released, may be dispersed, may be spread, if I may say so, dare to say so. So how did you take the decision on this? The decision on the venting itself, when that decision was made, I myself was visiting the towns on the site in the communities. So the decision was taken between the power plants and the main office. So I was told afterwards of the decision. The pressure of the containment itself, at the beginning, because the power supply had been lost, we were not able to measure the pressure levels. And against that backdrop, the batteries were brought in, and for the relevant instruments, the operators without the lighting had a hard time trying to connect to the instruments. And when they looked at the instruments, 600 the kilopascal or so, it was very high level, have been found by the operators. And immediately the TEPCO thought that venting was necessary. And the power plant team has communicated with the main office, and Mr. Komori at the main office, they have reported this to the relevant parties and have begun the preparation for venting. So those were the developments. Then the radioactive substances to be spread to the outside. You would like to have a filter. For the severe accident response procedures, you didn't have any filters. So why was it that you didn't have any filters installed?
As you rightly mentioned, concerning the containment vessel, that has to contain radioactive substance, and it's about releasing what's inside. There would be a possibility of releasing radiation. Concerning venting, at the time of the construction of the plant, the function was not available, but in order to improve its safety, various measures were taken, and this is one of them. In a very severe accident, to do the decompression of the containment, the discussions were made about the possible measures. Installing a filter, as you mentioned, that's one option. For our boiling water reactor, that what we are using, a huge pool is inside this containment vessel. Several thousands of tons of water are stored there. Concerning the vapor that's released from there, it has to go through this massive amount of water. So a significant amount of radiation can be removed according to a certain data. Globally speaking, let it go through the and then the venting can be done. That's one measure. As you said, using sand or gravel or spraying water, that kind of a device can be installed, and so that the venting can be done through that mechanism. Some nuclear power plants opted for that option. Now, in our case, the BWR boiling water reactor, in our case, we adopted the former methodology. The similar type of the reactors are operating in great number in the United States, and the American power plants have adopted the similar methodology, as I understand.
Are you thinking of economy of that methodology, economic viability? No, rather than economy, by going through water, a lot of radioactive substance can be removed, radiation can be removed. Considerable amount of radiation can be removed. 1/100, 1/1000 would be the result of the radiation. But even if you add a filter, the same performance can we get? It's an option of technology. It was a matter of technical option. So this time around, the Federation of Power Corporations, I think they were opting toward this facility. What do you think about that? Hitherto, we have introduced various measures of reducing risks. Despite such efforts, such a severe accident happened. So it is really, we are, no words can express how sorry we are. But you see, the venting through the water, the effect of venting through the water was effective, in my opinion. But in addition, you can add one more filter that will enhance safety level even one step higher. I think that was the judgment by the Federation. Now you say going through the water, but from dry well side, you do it directly. That is possible too. But this time, if you do that, it doesn't go through the water. So adding filter is a correct methodology, don't you think? Well, the point you raise is a method of not going through water and venting. That is possible. So we should have added filter. That's your point. I understand. I gather. Of course, that is one concept possible, but what is important in this regard is that even if you had filter, in some way, you had to activate the filter. Within the containment vessel, even if you go through the water or through the filter, at necessary timing, necessary valves had to be opened so that the venting is effected. This time round, the difficult point was this. There was no power supply, and there was no air to activate. So it had to be manual opening. The venting valve had to be opened by people, by hands, manually. So opening the valve must be secured and ensured. So whether water or a filter, the availability of opening the valve was most important.
Now, if I may ask a follow-up question. Now, the discussion you have had, that may be true, but in actuality, the urgency of the venting, I believe that had heightened and increased. That, I believe, was your judgment. Then, did you also consider the fact that there were no filters? And I'm sure that have come up in your mind, I'm sure. Also, how did you feel about that?
Concerning unit number 1, from the late evening on the 11th, the situation of the reactor was getting more and more difficult. And in the wee hours of the night, the pressure in the containment vessel was becoming high. We came to understand that. So the venting was necessary. That was the immediate judgment. Having said that, the environment was so difficult. For one thing, it was wee hours. There was no lighting available. And the radiation doses started to rise. And we were trying to get to the site, but the pathways were not available. The roads were broken. There were so many aftershakes. And the aftershakes may actually bring tsunami. So every time there was an aftershake, we had to evacuate. And at the actual site, something called PHS, we were using cellular phones, but such communication, tools were not available. Regarding the necessity of venting, we understood that from the initial phase, but it was very difficult to do so.
So that was the situation. In addition to that, there are procedural problems. You had to make a press release. Prime Minister was coming. Because of these happenings, they may have affected the timing of venting. Did it have the effect of delaying the actual venting? Regarding the press release in the middle of the night, venting was necessary. That was our judgment. And immediately we contacted NISA. We reported about that decision to NISA. As a result, it was decided that we should have a press release. So at around 3 o'clock, Mr. Komori, Managing Director, and Minister Kaeda have talked about unit number 1, and the unit number 2 was also in a worrisome state. So unit 1 and 2, venting may be needed. So that was what was contained in the press release at that time. Then Prime Minister Kan, on that day, very early morning, he came to the power plant. But at the local site, venting was a necessary means of protecting the containment vessel. So it had to be done. So at the local site, the preparation was underway because it had to be done anyway. Related to that, Mr. Sakurai, do you have a point? The visit of Prime Minister Kan to the local site, 1 or 2 points? Yes, related to that, in the morning of the 12th of March, Prime Minister Kan went to Fukushima related to his visit. Prime Minister Kan came to the site. Mr. Muto, you were there too, right? As I told you, I was making rounds to towns' governments, and then offsite center was open. Then I would go. So I was just confirming the situation, and then in wee hours of the 12th morning, offsite center became operational. That was the report I received. So I went to offsite center. At that time, already in offsite center, METI officials were gathering. Once I went into the offsite center, as you asked, Prime Minister Khan's possible visit was mentioned. I was told about the possible visit by Prime Minister.
So after that, what kind of actions did you take, Mr. Muto? So the Prime Minister is supposed to take the command over the emergency situation. So the top person was to be there. So I thought that I should also be there at the present. So I have gone back to Fukushima Daiichi, the nuclear power plant. So Prime Minister that was coming, so Director Yoshida, the head of the plant, would also be there to receive him. Yes. I think there was certain communication to and fro, but what has been told that the Prime Minister was not coming to the Daiichi power plant, but finally we were told that he will be actually coming to the Daiichi power plant. So I went to the Daiichi, the nuclear power plant, and I believe I have met with Mr. Yoshida to try to have the latest information, and there will be the ground where the helicopter will be able to land. But then the dose levels within the power plant was increasing, and I wanted to meet with Mr. Yoshida entering the nuclear power plant, but at the entrance, the survey was made for the radiation. There was a long queue there. And if I was waiting, then Prime Minister's helicopter would arrive before me. So I decided I would go immediately to meet with the Prime Minister and receive the Prime Minister's helicopter without meeting with Mr. Yoshida in advance. So I have taken and guided the Prime Minister over to the power plant's office and then met with Mr. Yoshida. So I'm sure there have been different topics being discussed, but very briefly, could you tell us what was spoken there? What was the communication at the time? I have heard that Unit 1 was in a very difficult situation, and my role, I thought, was to explain to the Prime Minister what was happening at the power plant overall. But right from the beginning, Prime Minister have already commented on the venting. So did he say that you should immediately do the venting? Yes, I think he stated that. And how did you respond? What did you explain to him? I do not precisely recall the words that I have used. How exactly I have explained, I don't have the precise memory. But as I have been explaining, right from the beginning, we were aware the necessity of venting. But the site itself was in a very difficult situation without lighting, without any equipment or tools, and the dose levels were high, and then there was no power supply. It was a very difficult situation. So I explained this to the Prime Minister. As Mr. Yokoyama has already asked you the question, the necessity for venting. So in the midst of that process, the Prime Minister has arrived. Was there any impact on the venting process itself? As I said earlier, from the midnight onwards, we were fully aware of the necessity for the venting because we don't want the containment to be ruptured. So venting was a must. So as quickly as possible, we wanted to do the venting. So people on the ground was making the preparation for that. But as I think back from now, I am truly sorry that perhaps the preparation was not adequate enough. No lighting, no power supply. So the procedure, we were not able to go through the normal procedures. So we had to first of all ascertain what should be the procedures, protocol to be followed, and the people had to carry the casks where there was no lighting, and how to open the valve with hand. We were checking all the necessary the steps to be gone through. But in any case, the preparation was ongoing and progressing on the ground. And I was feeling very nervous and have tried to give the explanation. And Mr. Yoshida have come over from the emergency headquarters and have given the necessary explanation to the Prime Minister. Can I ask a question? Please be succinct. Now, that licensee is supposed to take the primary responsibility, is what you have stated repeatedly. So in the emergency situation, that the Prime Minister comes into the picture, comes into the process. What is your reaction for this? What was your thinking at the time? What did you think that Prime Minister, what was the reason Prime Minister was coming to the site? Now, I was told that the Prime Minister was coming and since I was the person responsible for the nuclear power plant, and I thought that I should give the proper explanation and receive him. But I did not know. I don't think I am in a position to explain or state how I thought as to what may be the reasoning for the Prime Minister. But in any case, we have heard that Mr. Yoshida was doing his best on the ground, and he was responsible for the operation there. But in any case, we would like to break for a few minutes and start again at 3:15. So for the second part, may I ask Mr. Muto and everyone else, because of the time constraints, to be very succinct? Thank you.
この際それでは暫時休憩ということで。
So we will resume at 3:15.
はい、再開は3時15分でございます。
では、どうやよろしいでしょうか。
May we resume the meeting?
最初に最後一つ残ってたのがありました。
There's one thing that was still remaining, Mr. Sakurai, member of the commission. Sakurai, I still have another question about the water injection. Water injection was mentioned for a cooling purpose. Technically speaking, I think this was really necessary. Am I right? Yes, you are right. The seawater and the fresh water, is there any difference between the two, seawater and the fresh water? To cool the reactor, for cooling purpose, both have similar effects. But naturally speaking, the seawater contains a lot of impurities. And because of those impurities, it could cause the different problems, and that possibility is higher in the case of seawater than it is with the fresh water. About the seawater injection, from Takekura, the fellow, I think there was the request to stop this. How did you feel about this, the seawater injection? I was at the offsite center at the time. Between the nuclear power plant and the main office, the exchange, I saw the exchange in the TV or video. Regarding the cooling of the reactor, as you said, the water injection is of the paramount importance. If fresh water is available, that's better, of course. But from the early time, seawater will do, seawater would do. That's what I said in the video conferencing. I think that I kept saying that about the seawater injection from the Prime Minister's office. the comment was made from the Prime Minister's office, from the director of the nuclear power plant, that was mentioned about this comment made by the Prime Minister's office. With regard to the reason why, I couldn't really understand it very well. But since it was about the Prime Minister's office, including the Prime Minister himself, that was probably the opinion. And Takekuro, within the Prime Minister's office, concerning the injection of seawater, I understood that he was making efforts to get that understanding that the seawater injection would be all right. So the Prime Minister's office's comment and that the seawater injection, that was not approved by the Prime Minister himself. I didn't actually challenge that.
In the interest of time, your answer should be brief. Mr. Muto, earlier on, you said that most important thing is the judgment at the local site, including the Tokyo head office. Instructions shouldn't be issued so frequently. The judgment by the power plant itself was very important. Now, how do you relate that to your answer to the previous question? At the time of initial venting, Prime Minister Kan came to the power plant, and then he went back asking the mobile phone number of Director Yoshida. So Mr. Yoshida told me through the video conference that the Prime Minister said so. So I gathered that it was the point of Prime Minister. So if the Supreme Commander is of that opinion, then I thought that I should refrain from making any comment. So I sort of acquiesced and I approved after the fact the judgment. Thank you very much, Mr. Nomura. On that particular point, I have a question. Former Prime Minister and Mr. Muto, who has better knowledge about nuclear energy? Prime Minister Kan and Mr. Muto, who has the better knowledge? I met Mr. Kan for the first time on the morning of the 11th. I cannot respond to that question. You said that judgment should be done at the local plant. I think what you mean is that experts are there at the local site. So in that sense, the even Prime Minister's office issues an instruction. You should have explained fully, and you should have acted accordingly. What do you think about this? What is the implication of the judgment? Of course, I was not able to understand, but in a time of emergency, it's a matter not only pertaining to TEPCO. Prime Minister's office is involved in a very large organization. A decision is made, and various things will proceed based upon the judgment. So the top person of that big setup has that view. Then that must be the judgment to follow. That is how I felt about it.
Okay, understood. Now, the former Prime Minister Kan seems to have the good knowledge on the nuclear the energy, but it does not mean that he is necessarily an expert. In any case, the person responsible to give the instruction, even though that person may be a layman, you would have to follow the instruction if the instruction is given from the top leader, right? Now, I myself, in the circumstances, I thought that the most important thing was to inject water into the reactor. So for the long hours, be it seawater or fresh water, if the water injection is to be stopped, then I should object. That was my thought at the time. But as to